You're listening to Little Green Cheese, episode 31. Well, hi there, I'm Gavin Weber, and this podcast is where you can learn about cheese making at home. We've had a very exciting week. Lots of things have happened. I actually cracked open some Colby cheese this week that I'd made about 5 months ago, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was one of the best Colbys I think I've made. I let it age for an extra month and a half, and I have found that the flavour is just spot on. Now, some of the other things I've been doing is that I have started to rewrite the ebook that I produce, Keep Calm and Make Cheese, A Beginner's Guide to Cheese Making at Home. Now, what I'm going to do is going to produce a second edition. So I'm going to slip in about 4 new recipes, add a little bit more around troubleshooting, mainly from the questions that I've been receiving here on the podcast. So I'll use those as additional troubleshooting tips. So I'm going to expand that out a little bit more. Of course, with extra content comes a little bit more cost. I'm only going to raise the price by $1, but that'll be out in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that, and I will announce that on the podcast. Now, I was also interviewed the other day by another podcast called the Reaction Podcast, and these are two gents out of Brisbane, Australia. First caught my attention when they recorded a segment about the Little Green Cheese podcast. And they were quite amazed that somebody could have such a niche podcast that just talks about cheese making at home. Now, I know that all you curd nodes out there love the Little Green Cheese and you listen regularly. There are thousands of listeners out there. Now, what I want to do, I'm going to play part of that episode. Once again, it's the Reaction Podcast, and basically they talk about podcasts and what they think of other people's podcasts. Now, word of warning, there is some swearing, some coarse language in there, but I will play it as is. I haven't cut anything out, and it is quite humorous. So here are the lads. This is Matt and Bo, the hosts of the show, and they talk about yours truly and the Little Green Cheese podcast.
He's gotten into podcasting recently.
No shit.
Yeah, so what's really cool is I've been reading him in my own head. Now I can hear him speaking.
That's weird. So how are you reacting to that? How are you dealing with that?
Oh, no, pretty good, because it's exactly what I thought.
What, so he's like, nah.
No, he's an old guy.
Oh.
Yeah, there's pictures of him on the website too.
I don't want to see. I want to read the... Well, can I read his book without seeing him?
I don't think so. Not really. But, he sounds like a real Aussie kind of guy. Like, yeah. You can tell he's Australian. So he's got a podcast. He's actually got a couple of them. But the one I've listened to quite substantially, actually, a lot of episodes, is Little Green Cheese.
Oh, I like that.
And there's nothing Reaction Podcast as a whole likes more than very niche podcasts.
Yeah, I could listen to that.
It's purely about cheese making at home.
So what, he makes the cheese green? Like, how does
No. It's like, Little Green Men... Moon, green cheese in the moon.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Play on that. So it is green in some respects, like it's home cheese production and white. That's
so this guy's making his own cheese. Where's the cow live?
He gets his milk like from local sources, or he buys it from the supermarket or whatever. He just wants to make a better product as well with this.
Well, that's all right.
And he does. That. I really enjoy him talking because he gets very specific, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I've got a mozzarella, and no, you need a brie," and he talks about all the different types of cheeses and which cheeses are his favorite. He talks about keeping cheese logs when you make your cheese, because you have to mature it for months.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's changed the taste unless you kept a record of it. He talks about the ingredients all the time. What really grinds my gears though about it is because I've done a bit of chemistry at uni. He goes, "Oh, lipase." I'm like, no, it's lipase. Lipase.
Tell him. Write to him.
He actually mentioned that in a podcast. He's like, oh, look, there's a few different pronunciations of this. I call it lipase, but some people call it lipase. I'm like, oh, thank you. Finally, after months.
Had you written to him?
No, I hadn't.
So someone else has?
No, I think he just brought it up. But
right.
I was sitting there going, oh my god. He does say enzymes. The way he says it's a bit unusual, but it's really quite good because he goes into detail. Oh, you need some calcium carbonate for that, and got to use a full cream milk. And people write in and buy cheese kits from him.
So, are you going to make some cheese? Or are we just going to spend? Are we going to stand around like spare bricks at a wedding, or are we going to make some fucking cheese?
Look, I think I should make some cheese.
All right, good.
But he's got pictures of cheese. Like, I don't know what you'd expect, but this littlegreencheese.com literally has pictures of cheese.
Literally,
all over
the
it.
most fucking amazing cheese.
And he had episode 29, which was rennet and lipase. And seriously, there's people calling into the show, finding out questions, people emailing him. There was one interesting episode where he talked about kosher cheese.
Oh, here we go. Yep.
So he talked to a gentleman over in Israel who's making kosher cheese over there.
See, I can get into this.
It's so niche. I love it. I can't get enough.
The thing that worries me about making your own cheese is, what if you like it?
What do you mean, what if you like it?
Well, what if you make your own cheese and it's the best thing you've ever eaten and you just can't go back to store-bought cheese?
Oh, that's what he said. Because he did a cheese platter and he didn't have enough cheeses ready, and the wife bought all the cheese, and he said, not much flavor. It's pretty terrible. And he talked, it's a smoked Dutch cheese, but really I think it's just Needham that's had smoked flavor attached to it.
That, good point.
That's the thing.
That is definitely a thing.
Yeah, and this is a little brie. He talked about he finds it much better when he has it himself.
Yep, cool.
And I think that's a problem. I think you will get addicted to your own cheese. It's like when I made...
That sounds like such a weird health thing. You will get addicted to your
I'm
own
addicted to cheese as it is. If it's better, fuck me. I'm still thinking about Mulaney triple brie.
Yeah, cheese will blow your mind.
I've gone down to the double because I don't think I can handle the triple anymore.
Wow. You know what? This is the opposite of that. I actually found a packaged mainland cheese that they haven't produced in years, which is a smoked cheddar. And they haven't made it in years. I saw it in the supermarket the other day, and unashamedly, I bought 3 packets.
What's wrong with you?
I hate myself. So I might listen to this cheese cast. If you could kindly make some cheese, we'll make some...
we'll get that guy on who does the brisket.
Yeah, we'll get him on, and that'd be great. Actually, maybe we can talk to this cheese man.
You know what?
Would you feel comfortable talking to him?
Oh, I would. Yeah. You know what cheese aficionados are? Code nerds.
Fuck you.
No, that's what he calls them.
Code nerds.
He's like, oh no, they've turned into code nerds now. They're into it. The only I have some hesitation in that it's a foodie thing to do.
Call yourself a code nerd?
No, enjoy cheese making.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with being a foodie.
Well, that was their review of the Little Green Cheese podcast. I do apologise for the swearing. If you're a bit sensitive to that, I apologise, but I'll mark this podcast as explicit. I know we don't usually have language on the podcast, but it was too good to miss. It was a great little review, and I enjoyed it. So subsequently, they invited me onto the show as a full-blown interview, and I will be playing that on the Greening of Gavin podcast, and that'll be published on Wednesday night. So in 2 days' time, you can always pop over to the greeningofgavin.com so you can listen to the full-length interview. So on with the news. We've got a small news segment. This is it's the Rural News Service for the ABC Broadcasting Corporation. Now, it's a little segment about Lyndall Dykes. Now, she teaches cheesemaking workshops up in Coffs Harbour. In fact, she actually teaches all around the place. And what I'll do, I'll put a link in the show notes. And look, I don't mind doing this because I teach cheesemaking courses down here in Victoria. There's no way I'd get up to New South Wales. So Lyndall's not competition or anything like that. She's just a lovely lady trying to make cheese and teach people how to live a little bit more sustainably. So here's the recording.
Just totally changed the flavour. My name is Lyndall Dykes. I'm an artisan cheesemaker and head of the Cheesemaking Workshop. Always a home cheesemaker. I've never really been interested in making cheese on a commercial level. I think that might take a little bit of the fun out of it for me. My passion is being able to teach people how to make their own cheese at home, to try and get as many people as possible to be as sustainable as they can, take a bit of responsibility for the food that they're consuming and, help the environment a little bit. I've been on the road teaching cheesemaking now for 5 years. I started off by teaching friends how to make cheese, and then it just got that busy that I thought, why am I doing this just for friends? I should be out there teaching as many people as I can. So now to cut our curd, we're going to put the blade of the knife in. So we'll do one as Persian and one as Greek. Okay, so this one we'll cut at 1.5 centimetres. So we put the blade of the knife into the curd and we're going to slice the curd. We're going to slice the curd from top to bottom and left to right. It doesn't matter if the cuts aren't nice and neat. It's not going to have any bearing on how the cheese looks at the end of the day.
All of that thin and a half.
Yep. And this one, we're going to cut this one at 2.5 centimetres. Okay, so I'm really passionate about what I do. I just love the fact that, it's such a simple process and such a joy to share with people. And one of my greatest pleasures is when we get out to broadacre farms and you've come across regional women that are out on the farms. They might be young women with little children and they've got such a long journey on the way to get to town, but they have a house cow. So, for them to be able to make their own yoghurt for their family, to make their own cream cheeses, fetas, camemberts, it's just amazing to see how they blossom with this newfound knowledge. Mix that cream. Once you've taken off 1 litre of whey, we'll drop the vat back down and take the temperature. Okay, so it's lift and jiggle. I think it's a bit like putting my
They're actually making camembert here in the... I've got this from a video.
We're finding that more and more people are becoming interested, and I suppose a lot of the cooking shows that are on TV now are kind of showing people that making your own food from scratch is not a difficult thing to do. I mean, it was something that our grandparents did. They used to make most of their own food from scratch, and it's something that's been lost in our fast food society, which is a terrible shame, but being able to bring it back is fantastic.
Well, that's Lyndall, and she runs a company called the Cheesemaking Workshop, and she teaches up on the north coast of New South Wales in Australia. Now, we've got some listener questions, so let me just cue those up. So the first one is from, it's a voice recording, it's from David, and take it away, David.
Hello, Gavin. This is David from Indiana. You helped me last week with my farmhouse cheddar and my skim milk problem, and you were correct. It was a skim milk. I moved to whole milk and made several batches so far, and they turned out excellent. As far as the first part goes, we'll see when they age how they turn out. You mentioned that I am using a sous vide, which I am. It is a water oven. I had such a real problem keeping the temperatures accurate or even close. I would overshoot sometimes by 10 degrees, sometimes almost 15 degrees, and I just could not get it correct no matter what I tried. Maybe it's impatience, experience, just that man thing, I don't know, but moved to sous vide and it's been working out fine. Which brings me to my question is, how critical are temperatures when you start making cheese? I know that a lot of them start out 86 or 90 degrees, and then you move them up 2 degrees. With the sous vide I can be pretty accurate. And I always check temperature with my ThermoWorks thermal pen. But if it says 90 degrees and you're at 92, does that matter a whole lot? I'm sure some cheeses are more forgiving than others, but there's probably some that you really need to try to stay pinpointed. Like I said, my temperatures are normally spot on, usually a couple tenths off with the sous vide, but there's times that I would maybe drift just a little bit higher, and I'm wondering how critical it is that I stay within the target temperature. Again, is it 1 degree is fine, 2 degrees fine? Obviously 10 or 15 is not, but just wondering how close you really need to be. I'm sure the one answer is as close as possible, but I guess I'm looking for that variance so that if I go over 2 or 3 degrees that I'm not, starting to panic that I've ruined a good batch of cheese. Again, I appreciate your help. Thanks, and love your videos, and just started listening to your podcast regularly. Thanks, and have a great day.
Well, thanks so much for your question, David. Really appreciate you calling that one in. Well, answer to your question, the temperature is vital that you stick, within plus or minus 2 degrees Celsius. I wouldn't vary any more than that, especially if you're using a mesophilic culture. They're very sensitive to higher temperatures. Thermophilic cultures don't particularly like it if you go over, say, 52 degrees Celsius, maybe 53. I wouldn't go any higher than that with a thermophilic, which is a higher temperature culture. As I said, mesophilic doesn't really like it if you go over 38 degrees Celsius. I'm not too sure what that is in Fahrenheit. I think it's about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It cannot handle it. It starts to die off. So make sure you're plus or minus 2 degrees Celsius. I think that's about 3.5 Fahrenheit with your recipes. Ideally, as you mentioned, you should be spot on. And the reason is that the higher you heat it, the more the curds contract. And what that does, it makes a totally different cheese. You're going to have a drier cheese because more whey has expelled at the higher temperature. So try and be spot on, especially for those semi-hard cheeses. But like I said, with a thermophilic, the higher temperature cheeses, not so bad, but just don't go over the upper range temperature. Don't go over 55 degrees Celsius because you'll start killing off the thermophilic as well. Well, hopefully that's answered your question, David. Thank you very much. This next question is from Tracy. Well, it's more of a thank you than anything else. It's I don't think there's a question in there, but we'll play it anyway.
Hi Gavin, I love your website and you've been an inspiration to my cheese making adventure which has just recently started. Lots to learn and I will keep referring back to your website and sharing it with others. Cheers!
Thanks, Tracy. Sounds like you come from somewhere in Australia. I really appreciate it. Yeah, share and share alike. There are a lot of free recipes on Little Green Cheese podcast and a lot of written recipes on littlegreencheese.com. Okay, so over to the first of the email questions. This one's from YouTube, and it's from Lamov. Lamov says, why bother sterilizing your equipment if you're going to stick your finger in the curd? Well, good point. You really do need to sterilize your equipment. Main reason is because that's where most of the bacteria are going to be, the bad bacteria, if there's going to be any on your equipment. Make sure you sanitize it thoroughly. And when it does come to sticking your finger into the curd or sticking your hands in there, make sure that you've washed your hands with soap and water and then rinse them off with fresh cold water and then give them a spray with just plain white distilled vinegar. And that will kill any molds that may be on your hands and then you won't transfer them into the curd. So the next question is from... This one's from David, the same guy that just called in asking about the temperature question. This one is, Gavin, reading over your recipe in your book. This is about Parmesan. Sorry, I should have said that straight away. The subject is Parmesan ebook versus video. Gavin, reading over your recipe in your book and watching your video just to make sure I have these steps correct. In the video, you get the milk to 35 degrees Celsius and add your culture and calcium chloride. In the ebook, it says to add the culture and allow for 15 minutes, then add the calcium chloride. Does it matter when it is added? If so, which one is correct? Well, you can do either. So you can add the starter culture, and what that will do is that'll just rehydrate, because all the starter cultures that I use, and especially the ones that I've been using in the videos, are direct set cultures. They just need to rehydrate a little bit. And then you can add calcium chloride. Because remember, the calcium chloride's there to set the curd. It's to add more soluble calcium into the milk so your curd will set. As long as you put your calcium chloride in before you add your rennet, then you're laughing. You won't have too many problems with your curd set. If you add your calcium chloride after the rennet, there's no point. Your curd's set already. It'll be a sloppy mess if you're using pasteurised and homogenised milk. So hopefully that answers your second question, David. Thanks very much. All right, the next question is from Vincent Choi, I think that's how you say it. It says, "Hi, Gavin. I was wondering if you allow the cheese to form a rind unsealed in your fridge before vacuum sealing it." Well, Vincent, thanks for your question. Yes, it does. I do form a rind on some cheeses. So the cheeses that I allow a rind to form before I wax or vacuum pack it, most definitely Parmesan. I'll leave that in the cheese fridge for about 3 weeks, making sure that the humidity's quite high and wiping that down daily with a brine solution with a little dash of vinegar in there just to stop any mold from growing. So I'll keep wiping that down and then I'll wax it after the 3 weeks. With Caerphilly, for instance, which is, as everybody knows, one of my favourite cheeses, I will let a natural rind develop on that for the entire process. So I'll make the cheese, I'll air dry it for a day, and then I'll let it naturally develop a rind in the cheese fridge for 3 weeks. I have to be meticulous and I wipe that down daily. And I turn it daily as well because you want the fats to distribute throughout the cheese evenly and you don't want whey leaking out, especially if you've got a rind, you're starting to form a rind. Now, I do find, though, if I don't keep the humidity up for the Caerphilly when I'm naturally developing a natural rind, it will split if the humidity isn't up around 80-85% relative humidity. So that's just one thing you have to watch out for. So thanks very much, Vincent. Thanks for your question. The next question is from Alan, and I'll just read that out here. This one is around cheese cave and external thermostat. Hello, Gavin. Thank you very much for all of your useful advice. I have your farmhouse cheddar in the fridge and a second one with some blue in it. Couldn't find the peppers. I think he means peppercorns. And also a camembert, all appearing to progress well despite not having a constant temperature. I have a small fridge and yesterday received the digital thermometer I ordered, which appears to be the same as yours. And I'll put a link to that. It's one I found on YouTube. It actually says that, I'm puzzled, though, how to set it up. Could I have purchased the wrong one, perhaps? It says it is a snake lizard heat mat thermostat. I presume when the temperature falls and reaches the set temperature, the power turns on and warms it up. Whereas I need the power to be activated as the temperature rises and reaches the set temperature, so the fridge turns on to cool. That power is activated above the set temperature, not below. Am I missing the obvious here? And also, do you know how to set it? Well, you sent me some lovely pictures. Yeah, it's exactly the same as the one I did and same as the blog post on Little Green Cheese around an external thermostat. It is very low on, it's very scant on instructions. So now I did find out from reading the eBay, it was hidden in fine print. I'll put a picture in the show notes for this one as well of what Alan was talking about, what the thermometer looks like. The thermostat looks like. And the hint is these ones are all set to raise the temperature when they fall. What we want it to do is we want the fridge to come on when the temperature gets too high to cool down the cheese fridge. So the trick is when you first plug it in and turn it on, it'll have a little red light so you know it's set to heat mode. What you want to do is hold the center button. There's 3 buttons. So you hold the center button down for 4 seconds and the little green light will turn on. And that way, then you can set it to, say, 13 degrees Celsius, which is about roughly the average temperature you want to mature your cheese at. And it will then turn on when it gets and you plug your fridge into the thermostat. and it will turn on when it gets above 13 and cool your fridge down. It took me, I pulled the thing apart. When I first got it, I didn't read the instructions either. I actually unscrewed the unit, looked inside, thought there might be some little dip switches that I had to set or something like that, put it back together again, read the site closely, read the fine print, and there it was. It said, hold the center button in for 4 seconds. Little green light came on, and I was happy as Larry. Now, I cannot remember how many emails I've now received on how to do that, because the site that you buy it off of, the instructions are so bad. Anyway, so that's how you do it. Like I said, I'll put a picture of the thermostat that we're referring to in this question, and I'll put it into the show notes. Thanks again, Alan, for your question. Hopefully that answered it. I did send a reply back anyway. Okay, the next one is from Verlin, and Verlin comes from, we'll figure this out. Hello, Gavin. I'm writing to you from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania in the US. Since getting a cheese-making book as a Christmas present and finding your podcast, I'm learning a lot and really enjoying the episodes. I recently acquired a compact refrigerator to use as my cheese cave for aging, but the temperature will not go to above 48 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 9 degrees Celsius, without turning the unit off. Then it obviously goes too high. Most of the recipes I have call for aging at 50 to 55 Fahrenheit, which is 10 to 13 degrees Celsius. If I use the 48 degree Fahrenheit for aging, what effect will that have on the cheese? And or can I use this temperature for a longer time? Thanks again, and keep up the great work on the podcast. Regards, Verlin Hayes. Verlin, thank you very much for your question. Yeah, you could. 9 degrees is acceptable. If you can maintain it at 9 degrees, if you turn the thermostat, the internal thermostat on your fridge up as high as it can go, 9 degrees would be acceptable. You would just have to age for probably a couple of weeks longer. It'd be perfect for making mold-ripened cheeses like Camembert, Brie, Stilton, any blue cheese, perfect temperature for that. But for semi-hard and hard cheeses, yeah, it'll be fine. You would be able to mature your cheeses at that temperature. Just make sure you keep the humidity up in the cheese fridge. I do that by putting a 4-litre or 1-gallon ice cream container in the bottom of the cheese fridge, fill it up with water, and then hang a big sponge out of it. And I find that increases the humidity up to about 80% relative humidity, and that's ideal. It, as I mentioned in the last couple of questions, if I develop a rind, that keeps it moist enough in there that the rind doesn't crack. So hopefully that's helped. If you find that's not working after a few months of maturing cheese, then I do recommend an external thermostat if you've got a bar fridge, and try and source one of those. They're not very expensive. They're quite cheap. Just remember to press the center button. Well, thanks very much, Verlin, for your email. And the lucky last is from Greg Dempster. And Greg asks, "Hi, Gavin. My name is Greg, and I'm wondering if you have a recipe for making a red Leicester or a red Cheshire. It would be gratefully appreciated, as I can't find one anywhere, and I'm just beginning when it comes to making cheese." Well, I actually did find a recipe, and I don't dare try and reproduce it. So it's in Ricky Carroll's book called Home Cheesemaking, and there is a Leicester recipe in there, and it does use annatto to make it red, or the red colour. So yeah, if you are desperate for a recipe, then in the edition that I've got, what's this one? This is the 3rd edition. It's on page 114 and 115. I haven't made it. I haven't got that far in the book yet. Mind you, I've done the recipe afterwards, which is Gouda or Gouda, however you want to say it. But red Leicester. I have eaten it as a commercial cheese, but I've never made it myself. But it probably does taste very, very nice. Anyway, thank you very much for your question, Greg. Well, that's all I've got time for this week. Thanks very much for listening, Curd Nerds. Now, for upcoming workshop dates, you can find those over on littlegreencheese.com. While you're over there, you can see and read about my cheese making kits. I've got a soft and a hard making cheese kit, plus I've got a cheese press available for sale as well. While you're spending some time looking at those kits, what you could do is have a look at my ebook, Keep Calm and Make Cheese, The Beginner's Guide to Cheese Making at Home. Now, that's available in all ebook formats and available at all good ebook retailers. There are a whole bunch of YouTube videos on the site as well, video cheese making tutorials that will help you learn the art of cheese making at home. Thanks for listening, Curd Nerds, and stay tuned for the next exciting episode of the Little Green Cheese Podcast. During this podcast, you heard royalty-free music by Kevin MacLeod. I played Malt Shop Bop, News Theme, and Call to the Dairy Cows.